guys, welcome back to my channel. This week's video is going to be my anatomy tutorial number 7, and I'm going to be talking about feet. Feet definitely won in my question of the last video, which is what do you want to see first, hands or feet? I got the argument that there are more hand tutorials on YouTube than there are feet tutorials, so I decided to go with feet first. So next month's video will be covering how to draw simple hands. So if you are new to my channel and to this series, this is the series where I'm teaching how to draw simple anatomy, as in anatomy that you would use if you were taking an animation class, because I have a degree in animation, so I thought I would pass some knowledge on to you guys. And for this feet video, I'm going to be showing you how to convey simple feet. I'm not going to be teaching you how to do realistic feet, so if that's what you're here for, I'm really sorry, but that's not what I'm going to be showing in this video. I want to show you more of how to convey a foot and add weight to it and add on to the building blocks you've already learned in the previous episodes from this series. So if you have not seen the other videos, I highly recommend going back and watching those first. But I definitely want to teach how to draw feet simply and quickly so it can be added on to your basic gesture tools that you've already learned from previous episodes of this series. And yeah, I hope it's not too simple, but this is the way that I draw feet and it's worked for me, so let's just get started with it. So this is my favorite way to draw feet, and this is what I always do when I'm doing my basic gestures, which was the very first video of this series. So when I start out and I just want to get the shape of the foot down, I will basically use a simple triangle like that. It's very simple, and sometimes I will indicate, like, here's the toe. And that's basically what I do when I'm doing my simple, very, very quick gesture. It gets the shape, it can get the weight that you're looking for, the direction that it's pointing. And if it's bent, you can just bend the triangle. It's basically just drawing a simple triangle, but it really does convey, like, that's a foot. Absolutely, that's a foot. But that's my base way of starting out to draw a foot. And then I will kind of add a couple little steps to build on top of this to kind of render out a realistic foot. They're definitely not like realistically rendered feet, of course, but this isn't supposed to be realistically rendered. So I'm going to flip the page over and do some demos of more building blocks that go on top of this. So when you're drawing a basic foot, it's going to be made up of a couple of really simple parts. The first part will be a circle, which will represent the joint between the leg and the foot itself, so like the ankle joint. And then you're going to want a triangle, which will represent the body of the foot. I always kind of square it off at the end because on the end of that triangle will be a little bit of a square rectangular shape, and that will represent your toes. And this is the basic building block that I use for drawing most feet. And if you wanted to change the angle of your foot, you would simply just draw this exact same shape but at a different angle, so the triangle will become more three-dimensional, just like a foot would become more three-dimensional, because a foot is really flat when you're looking at it from the side. So yeah, just adding the triangle and then adding a little box and then keeping the ankle joint just a circle, because the circle doesn't really belong there since it's a joint and not an actual circle. But these are the basic building blocks, so just the circle, the kind of cut off triangle, and then the little rectangular shape for the toes. And that is a very simple way to build a really, really, really basic foot. So as for the toes, I know that the toes are always kind of what throw people off when they draw feet. The toes are really simple. Got your big toe, and then you have your 4 little toes. And there will always be a gap between the big toe and the 4 little toes. You can kind of just merge them into one shape. That's normally what I do because it still reads as a foot, but you don't have to have all the like crazy detail added onto it. So if I was going to take this foot in profile and just kind of draw it out, I'll do a really, really light version of that little demo that I did right here, ignoring the ball for the ankle joint. And I will just go in and add some toes. Now the big toe tends to point upwards while the other little toes, they point down. So that is how I would take that and turn it into a simple foot, because that's basically all a foot in profile is. It's just, and you can add like the ankle joint and stuff if you really want to, but yeah, that is a foot in profile, and it was really simple, just doing these shapes and then adding some toes on the end. Now if I was going to do this one's a little bit more complicated. So you'll kind of redraw what you already drew, or for me, I'll redraw what I already drew. If I can get my proportions right, that'd be great. So we're gonna have our ankle joint, the interior of the ankle joint, because it shows on both sides, but the interior is always higher up than the exterior of the ankle joint. So I will just do a big toe. I always just kind of indicate where the toes are. And the toes always kind of go in an arc like I drew here. And that's how I would take this basic 3 shapes and turn it into a foot. I always find that sometimes if I draw a foot, especially from this angle, that sometimes it doesn't quite read. So I'll always go in and I will kind of square off the bottoms of the toes, and it kind of makes the weight show a little bit more, so it's not so weird looking, because feet are kind of weird looking when you draw them. I also will go in and add, like, if I'm getting really nuts with it, I'll add some toenails, because then you can kind of see the shape of the foot. I think this is way more detailed than I would ever do in a foot, but this is definitely not the best foot I've ever drawn, but you guys get the idea. So in case you ever end up having to draw the bottom of the foot, which I don't really ever draw that, but you know, just in case, you'll want to start off with a shape kind of like this. So kind of almost a triangle, but not quite. And then you'll want to break it up kind of close to the top, add an arc for the arc of the foot, and then you'll want to kind of indicate where the toes go, and leaving a gap between the big toe and the littler toes. I don't know why I would ever have the need to draw a foot from like below, but you know, you never know. So yeah, I'm just using kind of like lines to indicate where my toes go, sort of like a layout map, so I can show, oh, this is where the big toe goes and these are where the other 4 go. They always kind of tend to stick together. They don't really, your toes don't really spread out that much. Alright, so that is basically how I draw feet. I just do a circle for the ankle joint, a triangle, and then a little rectangle shape, and then I just kind of add indications where the toes will be, and then I kind of just draw it out. I highly recommend when you're starting out drawing feet, use reference. I always use reference all the time. I didn't use reference for this and it looks not great, but I guarantee if I looked at a reference of the foot from this angle, I could draw it just fine. I highly recommend using reference. I know people are like, oh, don't use reference, it's copying or cheating. You absolutely can use reference. I don't know where that came from, where you can't, but absolutely I highly recommend that you use reference anytime you're drawing anything. It'll definitely help you improve your skills a lot faster than trying to learn to draw things without using reference. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're trying to draw some feet. Just look at some feet pictures up on Google, because that's what I did. I got to look at feet all afternoon, lucky me. I'm gonna finish this off with doing a couple quick demos just like I usually do. And as always, if you draw some feet and you want to share them with me, you can tag me over on Instagram and Twitter at MissKerrieJ. There's links down below to all my contact info and all that stuff, and if I see it, I will definitely give it a like, because I like seeing everybody's anatomy practice. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Hands will be next month. If you have any questions about this or any suggestions for things you want to see in future anatomy tutorial videos, since the series is kind of getting close to being done, you can also let me know down in the comments below. And I will see you guys next week for another video. Thanks for watching. Bye!